Instead, take rationally optimistic bets with big upsides. Earn with your mind, not your time. Get paid for your judgment. Choosing what kinds of jobs, careers, or fields you get into, and what sort of deals you're willing to take from your employer will give you much more free time. Then, you don't have to worry as much about time management. I would love to be paid purely for my judgment, not for any work. I want a robot, capital, or computer to do the work, but I want to be paid for my judgment. I think every human should aspire to being knowledgeable about certain things and being paid for our unique knowledge. We have as much leverage as is possible in our business, whether it's through robots or computers or what have you. Then, we can be masters of our own time because we are just being tracked on outputs and not inputs. Imagine someone comes along who demonstrably has slightly better judgment. They're right 85% of the time instead of 75%. You will pay them $50 million, $100 million, $200 million, whatever it takes, because 10% better judgment steering a $100 billion ship is very valuable. CEOs are highly paid because of their leverage. Small differences in judgment and capability really get advertised. Demonstrated judgment, credibility around the judgment, is so critical. Warren Buffett wins here because he has massive credibility. He's been highly accountable. He's been right over and over in the public domain. He's built a reputation for very high integrity, so you can trust him. People will throw infinite leverage behind him because of his judgment. Nobody asks him how hard he works. Nobody asks him when he wakes up or when he goes to sleep. They're like, Warren, just do your thing. Judgment, especially demonstrated judgment, with high accountability and a clear track record, is critical. We waste our time with short-term thinking and busy work. Warren Buffett spends a year deciding and a day acting. That act lasts decades. Just from being marginally better, like running a quarter-mile a fraction of a second faster, some people get paid a lot more, orders of magnitude more. Leverage magnifies those differences even more. Being at the extreme in your art is very important in the age of leverage. Solve via iteration, then get paid via repetition. Prioritize and focus. I've encountered plenty of bad luck along the way. The first little fortune I made, I instantly lost in the stock market. The second little fortune I made, or should have made, I basically got cheated out of it by my business partners. It's only the third time around that has been a charm. Even then, it has been a slow and steady struggle. I haven't made money in my life in one giant payout. It has always been a whole bunch of small things piling up. It's more about consistently creating wealth by creating businesses, creating opportunities, and creating investments. It hasn't been a giant one-off thing. My personal wealth has not been generated by one big year. It just stacks up a little bit, a few chips at a time. More options, more businesses, more investments, more things I can do. Thanks to the internet, opportunities are massively abundant. In fact, I have too many ways to make money. I don't have enough time. I literally have opportunities pouring out of my ears, and I keep running out of time. There are so many ways to create wealth, to create products, to create businesses, and to get paid by society as a byproduct. I just can't handle them all. Value your time at an hourly rate, and ruthlessly spend to save time at that rate. You will never be worth more than you think you're worth. No one is going to value you more than you value yourself. You just have to set a very high personal hourly rate, and you have to stick to it. Even when I was young, I just decided I was worth a lot more than the market thought I was worth, and I started treating myself that way. Always factor your time into every decision. How much time does it take? It's going to take you an hour to get across town to get something. If you value yourself at $100 an hour, that's basically throwing $100 out of your pocket. Are you going to do that? Fast forward to your wealthy self and pick some intermediate hourly rate. For me, believe it or not, back when you could have hired me, which now obviously you can't, but back when you could have hired me, this was true a decade ago or even 2 decades ago, before I had any real money. My hourly rate, I used to say to my...
Head northwest on Wilford Road towards Church Lane, B4149, then turn right onto Church Lane.
I used to say to myself over and over, is $5,000 an hour. Today when I look back, really it was about $1,000 an hour.
In 300 yards, turn right onto All Saints Way, A4031.
$1,000 an hour.
Your route may be affected by...
Dollars an hour. Of course, I still ended up doing stupid things like arguing with the electrician or returning the broken speaker, but I shouldn't have, and I did a lot less than any of my friends would. I would make a theatrical show out of throwing something in the trash pile or giving it to Salvation Army rather than trying to return it, or handing something to people rather than trying to fix it.
Turn right onto All Saints Way, A4031.
Trying to fix it. I would argue with my girlfriend, and even today it's my wife. I don't do that. That's not a problem that I solve. I still argue that with my mother when she hands me little to-dos. I just don't do that. I would rather hire you an assistant. This was true even when I didn't have money. Another way of thinking about something is, if you can outsource something, or not do something for less than your hourly rate, outsource it, or don't do it. If you can hire someone to do it for less than your hourly rate, hire them. That even includes things like cooking. You may want to eat your healthy home-cooked meals, but if you can outsource it, do that instead. Set a very high hourly aspirational rate for yourself and stick to it. It should seem and feel absurdly high. If it doesn't, it's not high enough. Whatever you picked, my advice to you would be to raise it. Like I said, for myself, even before I had money, for the longest time, I used $5,000 an hour. And if you extrapolate that out into what it looks like as an annual salary, it's multiple millions of dollars per year. Ironically, I actually think I've beaten it. I'm not the hardest working person. I'm actually a lazy person. I work through bursts of energy where I'm really motivated with something. If I actually look at how much I've earned per actual hour that I've put in, it's probably quite a bit higher than that. Can you expand on your statement, if you secretly despise wealth, it will elude you? If you get into a relative mindset, you're always going to hate people who do better than you. You're always going to be jealous or envious of them. They'll sense those feelings when you try and do business with them. When you try and do business with somebody, if you have any bad thoughts or any judgments about them, they will feel it. Humans are wired to feel what the other person deep down inside feels. You have to get out of a relative mindset. Literally, being
Continue for 1 mile.
Being anti-wealth will prevent you from becoming wealthy because you will not have the right mindset for it. You won't have the right spirit, and you won't be dealing with people on the right level. Be optimistic. Be positive. It's important. Optimists actually do better in the long run. The business world has many people playing zero-sum games, and a few playing positive-sum games, searching for each other in the crowd. There are fundamentally 2 huge games in life that people play. One is the money game, because money is not going to solve all of your problems, but it's going to solve all of your money problems. People realize that, so they want to make money. But at the same time, many of them, deep down, believe they can't make money. They don't want any wealth creation to happen. So they attack the whole enterprise by saying, well, making money is evil. You shouldn't do it. But they're actually playing the other game, which is the status game. They're trying to be high status in the eyes of other people watching by saying, well, I don't need money. We don't want money. Status is your ranking in the social hierarchy. Wealth creation is an evolutionarily recent positive-sum game. Status is an old zero-sum game. Those attacking wealth creation are often just seeking status. Status is a zero-sum game. It's a very old game. We've been playing it since monkey tribes. It's hierarchical. Who's number 1? Who's number 2? Who's number 3? And for number 3 to move to number 2 has to move out of that slot. So, status is a zero-sum game. Politics is an example of a status game. Even sports are an example of a status game. To be the winner, there must be a loser. I don't fundamentally love status games. They play an important role in our society, so we can figure out who's in charge. But fundamentally, you play them because they're a necessary evil. The problem is, to win at a status game, you have to put somebody else down. That's why you should avoid status games in your life. They make you into an angry, combative person. You're always fighting to put other people down, to put yourself and the people you like up. Status games are always going to exist. There's no way around it. But realize most of the time, when you're trying to create wealth and you're...
In a quarter of a mile, turn right onto Forge Lane.
Create wealth and you're getting attacked by someone else, they're trying to increase their own status at your expense. They're playing a different game. And it's a worse game. It's a zero-sum game instead of a positive-sum game.
Take the next right onto Forge Lane.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. What is the most...
Continue for 2 miles.
What is the most important thing to do for younger people starting out? Spend more time making the big decisions. There are basically 3 really big decisions you make in your early life. Where you live, who you're with, and what you do. We spend very little time deciding which relationship to get into. We spend so much time in a job, but we spend so little time deciding which job to get into. Choosing what city to live in can almost completely determine the trajectory of your life. But we spend so little time trying to figure out what city to live in. Advice to a young engineer considering moving to San Francisco. Do you want to leave your friends behind? Or be the one left behind? If you're going to live in a city for 10 years, if you're going to be in a job for 5 years, if you're in a relationship for a decade, you should be spending 1 to 2 years deciding these things. These are highly dominating decisions. Those 3 decisions really matter. You have to say no to everything and free up your time so you can solve the important problems. Those 3 are probably the 3 biggest ones. What are 1 or 2 steps you take to surround yourself with successful people? Figure out what you're good at and start helping other people with it. Give it away. Pay it forward. Karma works because people are consistent. On a long enough time scale, you will attract what you project. But don't measure. Your patience will run out if you count. An old boss once warned, "You'll never be rich since you're obviously smart, and someone will always offer you a job that's just good enough." How did you decide to start your first company? I was working at this tech company called At Home Network.